I understand what you're saying here, bro, but it might be a tad bit unrealistic. How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about this video that has gone viral all over the TikToks featuring a man by the name of Chris Crone outlining what his ideal teacher would be. And he's also saying why he took his kids out of public K-12 school. Now, the sentiment behind what he's saying, the idea behind what he's saying, I understand 100%. However, his ideal teacher and public K-12 is a little bit unrealistic, and we're not really addressing the elephant in the room that is key to solve the issue with public K-12 education. Now, before I go any further, let's go ahead and get into it. If you want to see this video info without my commentary, link as always will be in the description. If you're on IG, visit the link in the bio, go to the corresponding article on the website. But without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
The day I pulled my kids out of school was when I was in a parent-teacher conference, and the teacher was 200 pounds overweight. And I looked at her and I said, no, you're low energy, you're depressed, you're spending more time with my kid during the day probably than I am. And I'm concerned with the amount of influence that you're exerting because what you're teaching is not what's in the book.
Now, let's pause right there. I understand the point about the teacher not really looking the part and then saying, okay, if that's how you treat yourself, then how are you going to really teach my child what needs to be taught? I understand that particular point of view. Some may say it's judgmental. Some may say he's being mean, but I understand where he's coming from. If you have children, you want the best for your children, right? I don't have any kids, but that's what, as a dad, that'll be me. I want the best for my kids, 100%. Let's keep on going.
It's how you're living your life. You are not an inspiring human being. Most teachers actually are uninspired and don't like what they do. And then there's a really cool system that will keep them job protection forever. You can't get fired.
Now, let's ask a question. If a lot of teachers don't like what they do, why do they not like what they do? Is there a particular reason or just because? Again, we're going to get into it.
So they hate it. They have one of the most important jobs and they're the worst paid. The whole system is wrong.
If you were to put your kid in public school, what do you think the teacher should be paid?
My teachers get a $10,000 raise every year. They're $70,000, $80,000 a year.
Okay, so a $10,000 raise every year and you're getting paid between $70,000 and $80,000. I mean, the taxes to pay for something like that would be astronomical. However, you're not really going to solve the problem of these teachers in school not liking what they do with more money. You're not going to teach Lil Jermaine how to read with more money. That's not really how it goes, because some of the most well-funded school systems in this country, like Baltimore, Maryland, have some of the worst student performances. Baltimore, Detroit, some of the worst student performances. Now, some are just going to say because they black, I'm not really buying that. That's a cop-out, really. It doesn't matter if you want to be racist or just being realistic. It's a cop-out. I don't buy into it. I come from 100% black schools, and we don't just settle for mediocrity. Let's keep on going here.
And then I get to pick the teacher. I'm picking the coolest, most experienced, fittest. Teach me meaning, teach me fulfillment, and teach me happy. A great teacher has world experience in their 40s and 50s and still can relate really well to a child. If I had a choice between a 30-year-old and a 50-year-old, I'd take the older one.
Okay, so there you have it. He wants the teachers to get paid between $70,000 and $80,000 per year with a $10,000 raise every year. And he wants people to be fit in their 40s and be worldly. My man, that sounds great. It sounds great when you say it. It really does. But is it realistic? Is it really to pay that kind of money? Where is the cash going to come from for that, for public K-12? I mean, what he did was take his kids out of the system. So I'm not quite sure if they are in private school, and that could be a lot of money. I was watching a podcast or listening to a podcast, matter of fact, Joe Budden podcast, not Joe Biden, Joe Budden, the former rapper. And one of the cast members says that he was looking at a Montessori school for his 3-year-old, okay? And they were talking about $27,000 a year for tuition in New Jersey, New York. $27,000 for a 3-year-old. Okay, so when you're talking about private school and some of the better forms of education, it's going to be expensive. And if you want public K through 12 to be like that, or to be anywhere close to that, your taxes are going to go up. It's going to cost a lot of money. But aside from that, one of the biggest issues is the students themselves not coming to school prepared to receive a good education. So even if you have the best teachers, even if you have the best facilities, what about the kids? If the kids are coming to school acting the fool, cussing teachers out, trying to fight, and the parents don't really care. The parents, they don't care about report cards. They don't care about sending the kids to school prepared. How are you going to have a good environment where a teacher would want to be? Back to what I was saying earlier. Look, if a teacher doesn't like what they do, you got to ask yourself why. Why is a teacher hating their job? Because at a certain point, you would think that a teacher went to school for this. They spent a lot of money in their undergrad, maybe even post-grad work to become a teacher. And now all of a sudden they hate it. Why? Why is that the case? It's because the parents don't care. Listen, I'm gonna talk about the whole school to prison pipeline and everything else, which is a myth. And if you don't know too much about me, both of my grandparents on my dad's side were school teachers in Roanoke, Virginia. Okay, both of my grandparents, granddad and granddad, both school teachers. And they taught me certain things. And my dad also taught me certain things from being in that household, growing up with them. Now, my grandparents were teachers during integration in Roanoke. I think my granddad might have been like the first black teacher at one of the schools. I have pictures of granddad, and with the faculty, he's the only black person. Everybody's like, it's 100% white. He's the only black person. But different story, I digress. The point is this. When you're talking about school to prison pipeline, the black kids, they don't have a chance. They're discriminated against. It's racism going on. The problems, the differences between blacks, whites, Hispanics, Asians come from the household. 100%. It's not the fault of the teachers. Not at all. We ain't talking about the LGBT teachers and the drag queen story time. That's a separate video. I can go into that for really, really deeply. But let's focus on school to prison pipeline, Asian kids doing better than white kids doing better than black kids, or Hispanic kids and Hispanic kids doing better, whatever. If you come from a black household, too often what happens is the parents are not even really present. The father is not there 70% of the time. The mother sometimes not there either. Sometimes it's up to the grandma to try and raise the kid. The grandma, a lot of times, isn't highly educated. What is she going to tell the kid before he goes to school? So this kid is 5 years old, can't even count to 10, really, can't even write his own name, can't even tie his shoes, can't color in the line. He has no pre-school skills. He has nothing. He's going to kindergarten as a blank slate. Meanwhile, the Asian family, the white family, they are doing flashcards. They're reading to the kids. The kids can do some basic arithmetic. They have some skills before they go to school. See, that was my situation. All right. My mother taught me certain things before I went to school. And some basic stuff like, okay, you put me in front of the TV. I'm watching Reading Rainbow. I'm watching Sesame Street back before it got woke. And my mom is doing flashcards with me. My grandparents are school teachers. So when I would go to their house, they had educational materials. They had Simon, the little memory game. All these things I had access to as a child, which set me up to where when I go to kindergarten, I'm getting straight A's because I'm already ahead of the class. I'm ahead of the entire class. Even the white kids, the two white kids that are in the class, I'm ahead of everybody because I had the prior education. And I also have home training. I'm not going to go to school acting the fool, cussing teachers out, trying to fight. I'm not going to do any of that. And a lot of my classmates were in the same boat. You might have had 2 or 3 bad kids, but it wasn't the entire class. That's because we're all black. And understand this. I come from Virginia, Portsmouth, Virginia. Look it up. I went to 100% black schools till I got to be 14 years old, till high school. Well, I won't say 100%. I would say 80, 90% black schools. 80, 90% black schools. Mediocrity is a thing that comes from your household. I went to one school that was kind of a project school, but I went to the magnet part of it, but I would still see the project part. The school was in shambles. We had flying roaches, no AC in the summertime. It was a mess. But that didn't just make the kids act up. Certain kids would act up and certain kids wouldn't. It's simple. And the kids that came to learn regardless of what. Now, it's kind of hard to retain a good teacher in that environment, but still, we came to learn. We were dedicated to the books. If your parents don't care about that, you're not going to care about that. And the teachers can't really fix it. So as I close, I want to say this. I understand what he was saying about having the best of the best, but if you have an environment of kids that don't care because the parents don't care, like the lower level of the project school I went to, see, I was on the 3rd floor in the magnet program, but on the 1st and 2nd floor, these kids had the parents didn't care. They didn't care. They just there going through the motions. On those floors, that's when I would see teachers get assaulted by the students. I saw one of the lower level kids, a 6th grader, punched a teacher in the face with a lock. You know, like a combination lock. He put it over his knuckle, punched a teacher, and the teacher came back with a splint on his nose. A 6th grader, a little boy, not even like one of these overgrown, a little boy, 6th grade, broke teacher's nose with a combination lock on a lower level. These are the hood kids that had hood parents. They didn't care. We on the 3rd level and the magnet part, our parents cared. We cared. That's what it is. That's the difference. And if you don't fix that, trying to pay teachers more money or get better teachers is not going to actually solve the problem. If you go to a private school where there's a barrier to entry and you're paying 20 grand, 30 grand, then you're above it. If you have homeschool and you're able to do things yourself, if you, my man, want to be the Chad Alpha and teach your children, then right on. You will be probably your kid's best teacher rather than going to an environment with a bunch of other kids who don't have involved parents who care like yourself. But I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? What do you think about my man's solution with to the problem of K through 12 education in public schools? Is it realistic, unrealistic? Does it make sense? Does it not make sense? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below. You guys know where I'm at. What he's saying, I understand 100%. I totally get where he's coming from, but it might be a tad bit unrealistic with public K through 12 schools. First of all, where are you going to find the money? Second of all, if you are the caliber of teacher to get paid that kind of money, why would you want to go to some of these ghetto schools with these kids that don't care, with the parents that don't care? Okay, what are you going to do with that? There's not much you can do. You got to have the environment that's conducive for learning. That means all 3 pillars of this system must be on one accord. That's the parents, the teachers, and students. If any one of those 3 is off, then it's not going to work. It doesn't matter how much money you throw at it. It doesn't matter what kind of environment they have, what kind of books none of that matters. If one of those 3 is off, then the whole thing is going to be a wrap. And ultimately, as I close, the most important thing is parents that care. Because if the parents don't care, then the whole thing is done. But whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.